Mike Show. We got Peter. Is it Vinicombe?
Vinicum.
Vinicombe. Peter Vinicombe. Here we go, boys.
Everybody, listen to me. I'm gonna tell you how it's supposed to be.
So there you have it. There you go. This is the Chris and Mike Show, and we are. This is kind of cool for those of you just joining us live on YouTube,
So cool.
and those that you will be joining us later on. Peter is in Australia. I am in Arizona. Mike is in Illinois. That is the power of technology in a positive way.
We have traversed the international date line for the first time.
and Peter's living in the future, from what I understand. It's when we're recording this. It's 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon in America. What time is it in Australia, Peter?
It is 8:00 Wednesday morning.
Wow. So let us know what happens between now and tomorrow morning, because I would like to know. I want to know about the stocks. I want to know about what sports teams have won and lost. I want to know what I should invest in right now, so then I reap the benefits tomorrow. Okay, and then
Yeah, we had
if there's
we had
anything
a
else,
$70 million lotto draw about maybe 12 hours ago.
okay. And what are
Outstanding.
those numbers? Give us the numbers.
I'll PM them to you.
Okay, cool. Because then we'll split it, man. We'll split it 3 ways. Is it Australian money?
It is. So that's
Okay.
70 million probably. But difference is we don't pay tax on our lotto wins.
Which is the
Really?
way it should be.
Yep. So if you win 70 million goes into your bank.
I can't
Okay,
tell
so
you how
what's-
many.
what's-
I can't tell you how many people, Peter, that I hear say, if I were going to live anywhere else in the world other than the United States, they all say Australia. So you guys must do a lot of things right down there.
Yeah, I was dragged over here when I was 12 years old. I was brought up in England, and I wasn't impressed to come over. Dad hated the cold weather. He worked on a ship and loved the heat, so we came over in '87 for a holiday, and then they said we're moving. I'm like, oh, okay, so I was brought over in '89, and yeah, I wouldn't live anywhere else. Love it.
That's so cool.
Really? So there, we've heard now from America, because America. This is the question I wanted to ask you. So Americans, the viewpoint of Australians, right? And this sounds totally cheesy. Like when I think of Australia, I think number one, Crocodile Dundee. Okay. I think, and this isn't me mocking anybody, but you put another shrimp on the barbie, right? Those are the 2 instant things that comes to mind as an American for Australia. That and the fact that you're on the other side of the world, right? And your toilet water goes the opposite direction than our water. I don't know if that's real or not.
I was guilty of all that
but
until I, did some research myself, because so many people said they wanted to live there. I'm like, this has to be a great place. I had the same
Right.
initiation to Australia that you did. It's silly,
Okay.
and everybody over here says the
Yeah.
same thing, but I think he's going to say it's nothing like that.
Well, and this is my question. What do Australians think of Americans in that kind of context?
Ooh,
Like, do you just think we're all
Ooh,
arrogant
that's a loaded-
asshole,
that's a
Donald
loaded
Trump
question.
loving type,
from your
Go ahead.
perspective, Peter.
Yeah, from your perspective,
Um,
yeah.
I think Americans in general often don't know much outside of their own backyard.
True story.
In world affairs and geography and that type of thing. Yeah, there are a lot of people that think Australia is this tiny backwards hick town, even though it's a massive country. Australians probably one of the friendliest mobs out there. We definitely have our issues. We don't have guns. There are guns for people in sporting shooting associations and in on the land, but apart from that, we don't have
Okay.
the worry about guns.
Your police don't carry guns either?
Okay.
No, the police do carry guns.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and if I had to guess, I'd say we probably average maybe 2 to 3 police shootings every year, Australia wide.
2 to 3 in the
That's it?
entire continent?
Yeah,
That's
there's
crazy.
not. There's not a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And
just
I
so
guess
people
it's a culture
understand,
thing, though. You know, so our
yeah,
police
I could see
don't go
that.
up to people in a traffic stop and think that they're carrying. It's an extremely rare thing. I mean, there is organized crime and
Okay.
that sort of thing. So, you know, there's bad players in every country, but generally it's not too bad.
So you open up the can of worms about the mob. Is your mob similar to like the American mobsters that, you know, gambling, racketeering, prostitution, drugs, all that kind of jazz, like go over and take over a city and just, you know, bring it down into the absolute, you know, just dregs of society? Or are they more
Um,
respectful?
n- a lot of the organized crime is what we call outlawed bikie gangs. So
Oh, okay.
most one percenters of the bikie gangs are outlawed. It's actually illegal for
Okay.
them to band together and that sort of thing and be
Huh.
found in. I think it's more than 3 people and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that, and the bikie gangs are probably the most organized crime over here. But there's definitely, you know, Chinese groups and
Sure.
you know Lebanese groups and that sort of thing in different pockets around the
Okay.
country.
Let me ask you this, Peter.
Okay.
From what I understand, and I've done a moderate amount of research on Australia because I'd like to go there one day. Isn't it true that the majority of the civilized population lives in a tiny part of a gigantic continent? Is that not true?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that is very true. The mainly the eastern seaboard of Australia is your most populous.
Okay, if you know
We're
roughly how many miles is that wide towards what you guys would call the outback or
Well, see, I'm in Townsville. I live in far north Queensland. So for those that know Australia, you kind of got that pointy bit at the top right.
Yep.
I'm sort of towards the northern part of there, but it still probably takes me another 8 hours to get to the tip
Okay.
driving. Um, and then to get down to Brisbane, which is the capital city of the state that I'm in, is about 1,300 kilometres.
Wow.
Then it's about 1,000 kilometres to Sydney and about 1,000 kilometres to Melbourne. So they're your three major cities in Australia would be Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, and then across on the other side of the country, which I think it's either 7 or 8,000 kilometres over to Perth.
Okay. Yeah. People don't realize Australia is gigantic.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how many Texases is Australia? Because Texas is pretty big.
I knew it one time, to be honest with you, Chris.
Yeah,
and I don't
know
want to
this, and I
guess now.
probably
I think
should
it's
have
like,
checked.
well, I'll Google it if you got. I got one more question. So, explain to the people. So now we know that everybody lives on the eastern seaboard as far as civilized society. What is the rest of the continent like, from like north to south, east to west? Is it all the same or is it different?
It's different, and there are pockets of people throughout. There's a lot of mining goes on in Australia, so a lot of the outback, what we call the outback towns, are pretty much around those sort of mines, and then you get little pockets, and then there's a lot of indigenous places spread throughout, and they can be. So the most remote place I've worked is probably a place called Barcaldine, and that's 6 hours inland from a medium-sized city.
Okay.
It's an hour and a half from any clinical backup or anything like that. Um, Kangaroos are literally sitting in your front lawn. You know, there's a lot of stereotypes that we catch kangaroos to school and things like that. When you're in the outback, there are kangaroos sitting in your front yard, and
That's
they are a
crazy.
pest over here. Yeah,
Now, how are those
they're
people
considered.
living? Are they living in traditional houses? Are they living in huts? Are they poor? Do they, what kind of lifestyle are they living out there?
No, normal houses. They're normal city or normal towns. Often 1,500 people would be, around 1,000 people would be
Okay.
sort of your minimum kind of thing. There's definitely indigenous towns that are are quite poverty stricken, and they live a different lifestyle. With the there's rampant alcohol problems and crime problems and that sort of thing, and that's probably the biggest ongoing institutional issue that we have, is the disparity between Indigenous people and the common folk.
So in indigenous people is the Aborigines, correct?
That's
Okay,
correct. Yeah.
and then so
Indigenous, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders.
okay, so for those that don't understand, that may not truly grasp the concept of Aborigines, are what's their, are they like the original settlers in Australia?
Yeah, they've got a history here, and forgive me if I misquote times, but they've been here thousands and thousands of years.
Okay.
There's rock paintings and stuff going back a long, long time. And
Okay.
then Australia was basically taken over in 1788 when Captain Cook sailed over, and and basically there was a mass genocide. There was a lot of people killed, and then there was it's a pretty piss poor history in dealing with Indigenous folks.
Didn't the English
they
make it
weren't
a
even-
prison colony for a while?
Yep, that's exactly who came over in the first fleet was English convicts.
Okay.
And then they basically wiped out Indigenous folk left, right, and centre. They
A
came
lot
with
like
all
we
this
did to the
technology.
Indians,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Native Americans.
And then they tried to breed them out. They
Oh.
would steal their children, and
Oh.
so there was a big thing called the stolen generation, where they would actually steal children. And we're only talking 70 years ago, 80 years ago.
Wow.
This is relatively recent.
The stolen generation, that's what you call it?
Yes.
That's I mean
Yeah,
that's,
and it was
that's,
literally
wow.
the government would go in and they would take Indigenous children and attempt to assimilate them into white people's culture and kind of breed them out. They weren't they fought for us in the World War II, but they weren't actually classified as citizens. I think it was until the 70s, which for me is just, I'm a child of the 70s. To me, that is so. It's so foreign to me that would even be a thing.
Agreed.
Yeah,
We come
I'm,
from
I'm
the
the
same
same way.
decade.
70s, yeah, we come from the 70s too.
We're all the same age.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I mean, I don't mean to sound cheesy, but the stolen generation, that's a unique way to phrase something.
If you
I've never
didn't
heard
go
that
for
before.
a pen and paper there, I'd be real surprised.
Yeah, the stolen generation.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the Prime Minister, I think it was in 2006, I think, or around there. The Prime Minister actually, it took over 50 years for the government to actually make an official apology, and governments now are still in the process of trying to make reparations or come to agreements on reparations, because there's still people alive now from the stolen generation, and it's caused multi-generational trauma.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I could see that, because it's no different than if the people come over. I'm sure you've heard the nonsense of our border wars and stuff, especially in Arizona. Like the border wars in Arizona are more. It's more prevalent than it is in Texas, than it is in California. I think, I don't know why, but you've probably heard stories of how when they come across, they separating the parents and the kids and things like that, and so I can't imagine that at all. I can't imagine being separated from my kids and vice versa. So trauma for sure. I could see how that would have a lasting effect generationally, right? Because it's just
That's why I agree with what Peter said, and I always say I'm on team people, right? The
Right.
whole borders and races, and we're all on this one planet together, and we all
Yeah.
have the same pool of resources, right? Why can't we
Right.
just get along, be cool with
Right.
each other,
Right.
do a podcast, meet
Yeah.
a guy like Peter, have a good time, I don't understand why that's so hard. If you don't like somebody, don't talk to them.
Yeah.
What
exactly.
does an imaginary line have to do with anything?
Nothing except for Les
Yeah.
Messman's office in WKRP.
Well-
So Peter, I like your smile. So you know WKRP? Did WKRP make it to Australia?
I'll say yes.
Right on.
And not.
Okay. Okay. Well, it was a sitcom in this in the 70s that was focused on a radio station. And one of the characters was Les Nessman, who was the news reporter, and he always wanted an office, but he wasn't allowed to have an office, so he took duct tape basically, and duct tape a space on the floor, and he would mime himself going in and shutting his door, and somebody would just walk past the line like, "Wait a minute, Peter, you have to knock," and then you'd back up and do do do. They're famous. The most famous scene they have is on Thanksgiving, the WKRP turkey drop. So Les Nessman's on the ground watching the helicopter above, pushing out the turkeys, and everybody thought they could fly, and they didn't fly. So it was raining turkeys, and just a whole bunch of chaos in the mob, and the last gimmick of the show, that episode was Mr. Carlson, the station manager, was standing there with Herb Tarlick, the sales guy. He's like, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
It was one of the funniest American sitcoms that we ever produced.
Yeah, it was great. All the
We
different.
we get most of the American sitcoms over here. We are
Okay.
very, very heavily influenced by American culture.
So
Movies
do you,
as well. Sorry, Chris.
No, you're good. That was a good question. Movies as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So from your guys' standpoint, since we went to the media thing, do you guys have like obviously Mel Gibson came out of Australia, the Mad Max trilogy, original Mad Max trilogy, not the one, I don't know about the ones that George Miller's redoing, but the original ones were all based in Australia, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So do you have your own I don't know how to do you have your own Hollywood, for lack of a better question, like in Australia, where you produce your own movies and TV shows and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And when Trump recently announced a tariff on movies produced outside of Australia, outside of America, that could cost us
Really?
hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. The Gold Coast is probably our number one thing. Most of the Pirates of the Caribbean were filmed in
Oh.
Australia.
Really? I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Wow.
The Matrix was filmed in Australia.
Really?
A few of them, yeah. The Marvels have input. King Kong, the Kong versus Gorilla versus Kong, that was made in Australia.
Oh, I
So
love
there's a
that
huge
movie.
Australian thing, and
Wow.
especially in the special effects.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. That's good to know. So and you've 20 years in as a first responder, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So-
So I've been
so
a
give us a-
paramedic for 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So give us a little
So
insight
over here,
as
our
to that.
system's slightly different to yours.
Yeah.
All our we have state-based ambulance services, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
And they're not ingrained with fire departments or anything like that.
Hmm.
So, and so to give you, and we are a very large state. So
Yeah.
I used to work as a single officer. So I would be on call. I would do 8 days on, 6 days off, with office hours, and then be on call for the rest of the time. So you're pretty much on call for 24 hours a day for 8 days.
Wow.
And you are responding on your own. So you may get, in some regions or areas, you might have some volunteer first responders who will drive your vehicle so that you can
Okay.
treat in the back.
Hmm.
But yeah, sometimes it can take, it can be 80, 90 kilometers down country roads to get to a place. It can take an
Yeah.
hour and a half to get somewhere. And then it can take an hour and a half to get back to a very, something that's very much a health clinic rather than a hospital.
Wow.
Okay.
And then often they have to get flown via Royal Flying Doctor Service
Wow.
to a major tertiary hospital.
So that sounds like a potential crisis turning into death if it's something
That's a
massive,
3-hour
because
round trip, dude.
right? Just to get to a health clinic, and then if they're severe, like let's so you see if you can answer this. I'm sure you can. So somebody's having a heart attack, right? So they call you up. You're 90 minutes away. You get there, they're still alive. Then you do what you can to stabilize them, I would assume, right?
Yep.
And then you drive them back the 90 minutes, and then if they're still alive after that 3-hour total window, plus whatever time they were suffering from this, that's somebody who would then be flown to a actual hospital.
Yeah. So we do carry drugs, clot busting drugs that we
Okay.
are able to give under circumstances that can clear it. I mean, they're
Okay.
a high risk drug.
Sure.
We call it Drano for the heart. I don't know if you
Wow.
guys have Drano, but it
Wow.
basically
That's
dissolves
fantastic.
everything.
Heart Drano.
Yeah. But the problem with heart Drano is that if you've got a clot in your brain
Oh.
that is kept you alive, it busts that too.
Oh,
Oh.
no.
Oh.
So,
wow.
it's one of those cost versus benefit things. You're going to
Mm.
die from a heart attack if you don't get it, but the actual
you.
drug can cause the death of people as well. So,
Wow.
and it's not a drug given lightly.
Sure.
We have doctors. We have doctors on call for us 24 hours a day nowadays.
Okay. Oh,
that
that's
we can
good.
ring up and get advice. Telehealth is obviously improved
Nice.
massively. So there's a lot of things that can be done. Now, if we're going to a job that it also depends if we're in reach of a helicopter, whether or not
Okay.
they can come. They only have a certain range, and often
Sure.
we're outside of that range.
Wow.
And now the new thing that they're looking at unofficially is drones, using drones
Oh.
to be able to take product to
Oh.
people, to scenes that might be able to help them get, it could get there and get a drug into them before we get there,
Nice.
using telehealth and talking
Yeah.
to doctors and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of technology that's going to help in the future.
Yeah. That's cool. And
That
that's just
is-
because
that's really cool.
that's just because all your cities are so spread out. That's like, and it's so every specific city doesn't have those services. It's just a statewide thing, like you referenced. So then it all departs from the same location.
Yes. Yep. So
Okay.
for example, I worked for the Queensland Ambulance Service,
Okay.
and there was 4,000 paramedics spread out somewhere. Oh, Jesus! I don't know what to compare that to, but it's huge.
Okay.
Like I said,
Okay.
to go from the bottom of the state to the tip of the state's probably about a 25-hour drive.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy.
To give you an idea, Chris, because I know
Yeah.
you asked earlier, the United States is only slightly larger than Australia, like by 25%.
Oh.
That's
Oh,
how
so
big
it's-
Australia is.
Wow.
So
Well,
when
I've
he's
seen it on the
talking
map,
these,
but yeah.
So
Okay.
So,
So now it
split
really-
the United States into about six states.
Oh.
Right.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
so now you
One
can
of-
imagine
one of them,
how
Western Australia is about a third the size, is a third of the country.
Okay.
now you
okay.
can
Yeah, see-
imagine how long it takes to get somewhere, because you know how
Yeah.
long it takes to get from one state to the next. You'd have to go 6 states to the next state.
Wow, that's insane. See, Jake, my son's a Marine, and when he was stationed in Japan, he actually got an opportunity to join the Navy for was supposed to be 3 months, ended up being 9 months. But during that time, they had, I guess you call it, ported in Australia, so he actually got to see Australia, which was cool. Of course, he doesn't like share all the fun stuff with us. Just that he had a Vegemite sandwich, said it was disgusting.
Yeah, I've never been able to get into Vegemite.
and then he had the Fosters, which is Americans look at Fosters as Australian for beer night, right?
And the only people that drink Fosters is people that aren't Australian.
Right. That's
love it.
marketing genius right there.
I
You walk into
Absolutely.
that's how you can tell,
We'll
right?
we'll go overseas and they'll be like, "Oh, do you want a Foster's?" It's like, I don't drink that shit at home. Why would I drink it here?
So the brilliance of that, when a tourist is in town, right? Because they walk into a bar and say, "I'd like a Foster's, please," and then everybody in the bar just
Music
tourist.
stops. Okay, that's my
Yeah,
question,
it's
Peter.
funny actually because I live so Townsville, where I live, is a big garrison town. We've got a
Okay.
huge army base up here. I think it's got about 70,000 or something.
Wow.
No, that's way bigger because I think it's
Okay.
only 70,000 Australia wide. But there's a big exercise going on up here at the moment, and we went to so rugby league is probably the big sport over here, and we
Yeah.
went to a Cowboys game. We've got the North Queensland Cowboys is our team up here, and we were walking there the other day on Saturday night, and in front of us, a guy turned around. He said, "Oh, are you guys do you guys support the Tigers who we were playing? And I said, oh, I wouldn't be wearing this shirt if I did. He go, and then he started talking, and he was American. He was over here on exercise,
Yeah.
and there was a bunch of them going to a rugby league game for, I imagine, the first time.
Well, now, speaking of rugby, because I spy with my little eye behind you, I don't want to say footballs because I don't think that's what they're called in rugby, right?
Actually, in Australia, it is called football. They call it football.
Okay, so you have two
Yep.
footballs behind you that I'm assuming are from rugby. So expand.
Okay, so there's two games. There's rugby union and rugby league.
Okay.
Rugby union is generally called rugby, and league is generally called footy.
Okay.
They are slightly different games. League has 13 people on the field at once, where like 13 people in a team, whereas union has 15.
Okay.
And union has a much more sort of upper class history compared to league. League was the workers or the lower class game.
Okay.
But it's definitely on the northern coast. It's the biggest game, and in Victoria and the southern states, it's what's called AFL, or Australian Rules Footy.
Football. Okay.
And AFL, other people who don't like it just call it aerial ping pong, because you just see a ball similar shape to this, just going back and forth over a field that's nearly 200 meters long.
That's awesome. So do you play rugby?
No, I was a soccer player
Okay.
coming from England. So
Okay.
I played one game in my life, didn't know where to stand, didn't know what to do. I was just told, I think I was 13 or 12,
Okay.
and they just said, you're big, you're in the front row, and yeah, go do stuff. I just didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Just go do
It's for those that haven't seen rugby league. We don't wear any protection.
No, yeah.
They're real, man.
Some wear a little headgear, and that's purely to stop cuts. It doesn't stop any concussions or anything like that. It stops lacerations. So yeah, it's a pretty brutal sport, but I love watching it.
Oh,
I like watching it too.
yeah. I've seen enough of it. Yeah, it's definitely it makes the NFL in America look like, even more patsy cake flag football. Oh, don't hit me. Oh, I'm a quarterback. Don't touch me. Don't. Like we should send all
So
the
for the
American
last
football
couple of
players
years,
to there.
and including next year, the NRL, which is the main body, like your NFL, the NRL, they actually do the season launch in Vegas, and they do a couple of games over in Vegas in February.
Right on.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I've been sitting here trying to rack my brain, and I know you're going to cringe unless you're a fan of their band. Other than Men at Work,
Oh.
give me a couple other Australian bands that I'm overlooking, because Chris and I have been musicians
Midnight
our
Oil.
entire lives. Oh,
Midnight
damn
Oil.
it. Good job.
AC/DC.
Oh yes, AC/DC, man.
Oh,
Mike, you're
that's
going.
the one
Go
I'm
to your
looking-
room. Go to your room,
Oh,
Mike.
yeah.
Just go to your room, man.
Chris is going to finish the rest of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
In excess.
I do. I loved NXS. Michael Hutchins was
Thank
brilliant,
you.
man. Brilliant.
Another one of my
brilliant.
favorite bands.
He was just like he kind of like. And
That
I'm
band
not
is
comparing,
so cool.
and I'm not comparing us to Michael Hutchinson's NXS, but Mike and I had that kind of same vibe that Michael had with the members of NXS, where they would come to him. Here's the song we put together. Then Michael would open up his notebook and be like, "Okay, this song fits perfectly. Here you go, done."
I'll tell you real quick how
thought
I
you were
got to
gonna
be a
say you were into
fan.
I thought you were going to say you were into that erotic asphyxiation.
No, not at all.
No. I'll tell you how I
I
got to
can
be a
see it.
fan of their band was when I was in college. I was trying to put a band together just to have something to do, and the drummer in that band was the biggest NXS fan I had ever met in my life, and I just thought it was weird because we were forming a hard rock band, right?
Yeah.
Until I started trying to learn their music, and I was like, okay, I get it now. They had some of the coolest beats and melodies, and just the musicianship along with his songwriting, outstanding. I was like, okay, I get it now. And Chris is right. We had that same kind of relationship where we all played off each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very, very American influenced in our music as well now.
You guys rule the rock and roll world, man. AC/DC. How did I
Yeah.
overlook that one?
I know that's disappointing. Like all of our viewers are like, wait, Mike's a
Oh,
musician and he forgot about
that's-
ACDC. Okay,
But
and we got
also
we
have
got
a
ABBA,
really,
right?
we have a really good
They're
habit of,
Swedish.
if they're from New Zealand as
Oh,
well. If
okay.
they've been to Australia, we claim them as ours.
Where's New Zealand in relation to Australia? I'm terrible at geography, Peter.
It's
Just
about a
you know.
2 hours flight south to the sort of southwest, so bottom
Okay.
right.
Okay. So
But
you so
they're
so
basically like they're our brothers and sisters. You know, we're very close bonds from what we call the Anzacs, which is the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps.
okay.
So Gallipoli and in World War One and all that sort of stuff. So
Oh,
you know we've got that relationship with New Zealand where we all like to give shit to each other, but we'd all die for each other.
right on.
That's
That's
awesome.
cool.
Now, New Zealand, their claim to fame is the Lord of the Rings movies, right?
Yep, that's where they were. That's where they were made for sure.
Beautiful
Them and sheep
scenery.
shagging. That's their other claim for fame.
Okay.
Gotcha. So now you married, kids, family?
Yep, wife, 2 kids.
on.
The eldest is 22. She just moved out with a boyfriend a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh.
So big step.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's been difficult actually the last couple of years because I've been off work. Like I said, I worked away, did my week on, week off, and then
Right.
yeah, excuse me, I got attacked at work and
Oh.
developed PTSD, and I've been off work for 2 years.
Okay.
You were
Still
attacked
undergoing
at your
treatment.
paramedic job?
Yeah, I had a guy
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
ice attack me. A solo officer, 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, and yeah, he basically tried to kill me.
Oh God.
And yeah, it was one of those. But what it did is although I wasn't physically hurt from that attack,
Right.
we in first responders and same as military, you get really good at siloing memories. You know, you kind of deal with it, put it to the back. Well, what
Yep.
this did was basically joined all those silos off and let the lid open slightly. So all these memories that you thought you'd forgotten just came back, and then and and then they come back at the worst times, or
Right.
just like it could be something on TV, it can be geography. You know, you can be driving past somewhere. Oh yeah, I went to that, and then you get these vivid memories of a scene. You know, most of the time they're unpleasant. You know, we see things that human beings shouldn't see.
Yeah.
And that's the
absolutely.
nature of the job. We get
Sure.
into that knowing that that's going to how it's going to be. And
But do you, but
you-
before you go further, but do you really get into it knowing in your mind all the absolutely death and destruction you're going to see?
I don't
or
think you
or
could you?
Right. Or are you getting into it because like my son wants to be a firefighter when he gets out of the military service, and we look at that as he's such an empath because he feels what everybody else feels, and my fear
Yeah,
with
look,
that.
I got into it. I'll tell you how I got into it.
Okay,
I
okay.
used to work at a cinema complex,
Okay.
16 screen cinema complex, and
Okay.
I was one of the duty managers there. And we used to get a lot go wrong. There was
Okay.
all sorts of, there was seizures, heart attacks, fights, stabbings, believe it or not, a couple of suicides.
In a
Um,
movie theater.
Yep, there were
Wow.
people jump off the building. We had people hang
Wow.
themselves in the toilets.
That's nuts.
And I used to
So this is routine, like
You're good. You're good.
this
man.
is
That's-
routine, like every weekend this is happening, or every night at the movie theater, or how often?
No, but it was fairly rare, but it was enough where I thrived on it. That's when I
Oh.
kind of stepped up,
Okay.
and then it became between being a police officer and being a paramedic.
Okay.
And like I said, over here you don't join the fire department. You join as a paramedic into an ambulance service. And yeah, I applied for and I joined when it was the in-service training. So you just did all your training in service through your employer,
Okay.
and did a diploma, and I loved it. I loved it. I started working at Roma Street, which is basically in the heart, the CBD of Brisbane. So the heart of New York City, for example, our
Okay.
equivalent.
Okay.
So right smack bang in the middle. So really busy, really good exposure to lots and lots of different types of things, especially drugs. And then from there, I kind of went out west and did a relief stint in a smaller place and realised that you can get a much better work-life balance when you go out west.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, the first responders here, from what I understand and what I know, it's typically 48 on and like 72 off. Like you're not, but you alluded to it earlier. If you're just joining us, this is Peter. We're talking to him. He's from Australia. He spent 20 years as a first responder, and his typical work schedule was 8 days on and 6 days off, to where he was consistently on call for 8 consecutive days, office hours. So because of that, because that kind of like, wow, that's a lot. What would be a typical day for you during those 8 days being on?
So actually, though, it was a really good time when I was there. So let's, for example, say Barcaldine, which was a town of about 1,500 people. You can Google it. It's 6 hours from Rockhampton. Some people are aware of Longreach. Have heard of Longreach as an outback place, and it's about an hour from there. It in those 8 days, I might do 10 actual jobs.
Okay.
Where you're going to patients. So it's not overly busy. There are others that you'd be doing 40 in that stint. It really varies. But but on an average, I'd do about 10. I think my busiest week would have been, in those 8 days, would have been maybe 30, 40 jobs, and my quietest would have been 1. You get to take your kid to school. You get to pick them up from school. You get to go and do whatever. As long as your phone's on, you drive an ambulance everywhere. You're always available. You can pretty much do whatever you want to do. You go swimming. You could do. So if I went for a swim, if we went to the local council pool, I'd give the pool operator my phone, and if it rang, they would answer it and come over and give it to me, and then I would get out and I'd go do a job. And depending on the job, is whether I turned out with dripping wet shorts or got dried and changed, and
So your company car was the ambulance.
Absolutely. Yep. My kids
That's
grew
crazy.
up with me taking them to school in an ambulance, in a fully fledged ambulance.
Oh, that's fun. Did they
That's
get
a
to put the
novel
siren
idea.
on every day?
Yep, they didn't. They were so blasé about it. So when we moved to Townsville, with the kindies and stuff, where you often take the ambulance into kindy visits and that type of thing, they didn't care. Like all the other kids that thought it was awesome, and they were like, "Nah, that's just a normal vehicle. It's like
That's
a
what
car."
my dad drives.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's really cool.
So in Australia, the steering wheel's on the right side of the vehicle, right?
That's
Do you
correct,
guys?
Yeah, we drive on the left.
Okay, that's what I was saying. So it's kind of like England, which makes sense because England settled Australia, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
right. And,
right.
and yeah, we use the metric system. I think you guys are pretty much the only ones that use
We're the only
Imperial.
ones that don't, man.
Let me give you a piece of history. Peter might know this. Chris Dunham,
Okay.
this is going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Do you know why they drive on the left-hand side of the road?
To get there faster.
No.
Okay.
Because when people
No, I
wrote, all right, I'm going to teach everybody something here. Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay.
it's History with Mike. Because when people rode horses, only
Yeah.
2% of the population is left-handed. So you wanted your sword hand, you wanted to be on the left-hand side so the people coming at you were at your sword hand. Yes.
Interesting.
By the time we got to America, we were like, whatever, fuck that, we're going to do it our own way. I'm not sure how
That's
that
interesting.
happened because we were
That's
still riding
interesting.
horses. But
Speaking of lefties, little man's left-handed. My grandson, which we
he's
like,
2% of the population.
which explains why he hated baseball, because we
maybe
were
it's
trying to think
10.
he was right-handed. That he hated football because he was left-handed, and we were, and then when he was, Nikki's, my wife's a teacher, Peter, so she works with him on stuff. And about a month and a half ago, we gave him something to write, and he was struggling with the right hand, and then came back to it later, picked it up with his left hand. It was like, oh, what? What is this?
It's
And legit,
10%.
He's left-handed, so it's crazy.
That's a big difference between 2 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge, man.
I'm 2%. I have green eyes, so I knew
Oh.
it was one or the other. Yeah.
So only 2% of the population have green eyes?
Yeah.
What about you, Peter? What color are your eyes?
Mine are like a brownie hazel.
Brownie hazel. Okay. What's the percentage of that one, Mike?
Very common. I'm technologically advanced. I got green eyes and I'm allergic to milk.
There you go. So here's another fun question, and this is the stupid American in me. Did Outback Steakhouse originate from Australia, or is that just an American made up nonsense?
think it's I think it's American made up
It has to be
nonsense.
American.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's the name is familiar, but I don't know if it's from movies. Seeing it on
Yeah, yeah.
movies, or whether I've actually seen it.
It's probably movies. What's your biggest?
Well, here's another
Okay.
fun fact that you guys probably don't know. So you guys
Okay.
have Burger King. Over
We do.
here, when they brought it over, that name was taken already. So
Really?
our Burger King is called Hungry Jack's.
Hungry Jacks.
I did not
Interesting.
know that.
Now let's talk food. So, like, American food's terrible. Like, I just learned that Ritz crackers are one of the worst things you can put in your body, and I've ingested Ritz crackers since I was like 5 years old. So my wife and I are about a month in now, where we've gotten rid of all the bad starches, all the breads, all the enriched flours, and things like that. Sunday we did decide, what the hell, let's have some pizza, and like just been paying for it for days with the inflammation in the spine and all that kind of jazz. So it's like, okay, definitely can't go back to this at all. So the food in Australia I mean, you've never probably been to America, so you probably can't compare the two. But we've heard, Mike and I have heard from people we've been on, and the things that he watches and listens podcast wise, as do I, that American food is so terrible. But everywhere else in the world, the food is so much better because how it's not processed like we process food and put all the nonsense and shit in it. Is that? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Do you
with
guys
your-
ban all the
There you
like
go.
dyes and
Yeah.
high
I would
fructose
love
corn
to say,
syrup?
I would love to say yes, but no.
No. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, our diet is very poor as well.
Okay.
Diabetes is on the way up and all that sort
Oh,
of
really?
stuff. We are very mishmash with different cultures. We're a very multicultural country, so we
Kinda
do
like
have
we
a lot
are.
of Asian
Yeah.
influences and that sort
Okay.
of thing. So
Okay.
our food is a bit of everything.
Okay.
And there's a lot of indigenous tucker. What they call the slang for food over here is tucker.
Tucker.
There's a lot of indigenous tucker that happens, and there's more and more restaurants that are specializing in that, where they'll use berries and stuff grown in places that you don't go to the supermarket and buy
Yeah.
these sort of things. So,
Yeah. Explain what
yeah,
that
look,
is. What is
we-
tucka?
tucker's just food. Tucker's just.
It's slang.
We're a mad country of lingo. Everything is shortened or has a lingo for it. So
Okay.
afternoon is arvo.
Kind of
A petrol station or a gas station that you call
Right.
them. We call it a servo.
server. Okay. If I look like barbecue is Barbie.
Yep. Yep.
So that's true. So
American smoke-
yeah. So
American
Barbie
barbecue is very
okay.
much infiltrating over here. It's becoming big.
Okay.
Smoking meats,
Okay.
that type of thing. That's
Yeah.
becoming quite a big scene. All
Okay.
the stuff that used to be cheap is no longer cheap.
Mm. Now,
You used
do
to be
you
able to get all your cheap cuts.
now do you guys eat kangaroo? Like, is that a delicacy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So if
and
a
it's
kangaroo,
actually one of the leanest, highest protein meats you can get.
really?
It is extremely good for you. It's a very
Okay.
strong flavor and it's quite
Yeah.
gamey. There is a lot of people that don't like it.
Right.
We make most of when we do a bolognese, we make it generally with kangaroo mince.
Really?
It's lower fat. Yeah, it's got like 1% fat.
So now that's something you could buy at like the supermarket there.
Yeah, it probably takes up 1% of the entire meat department compared to your chicken and lamb and that sort
Yeah,
of thing. So it's
yeah.
not common.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think we're the only country that eats the food that's on our coat of arms.
That
Yeah,
is
we don't
pretty
eat. We're not allowed to even touch the American eagle. Like if you have a feather in Alaska and you pick it up and it's an eagle feather, and you try to go home with it, you get shut down. Like it's
Yeah.
that well protected animal. So
That's
yeah,
a
we
felony.
wouldn't. Yeah, we wouldn't be eating the American eagle. But so
I
because
think
you
that's
guys eat,
savage.
yeah, so because
I
you guys
like
can eat
it.
the kangaroos, if you have a kangaroo in your backyard, can you just shoot it, skin it, and process it and have it for dinner?
They don't have guns.
No, there are. You need.
Oh, you don't have the
licenses
guns.
to
Okay.
do all that sort of
Okay.
stuff. And there's a lot of. They do have parasite issues.
Oh, okay.
A lot of most kangaroos die in suburbia from getting hit by cars.
Oh,
They're some of
they
the
don't-
dumbest animals. They'll be standing next to 20 of their dead mates, and they'll be like, and then they'll try and run in front of you. But then they'll stop, try and turn around, but they'll skid. and then you'll
Oh.
hit them.
So they don't jump
and then
over
you
the
do
cars.
get a lot of people that when they do hit a kangaroo, they carry their young, their joeys in
Yeah.
their pouches,
Yeah.
and often if they're females, they'll often have a joey. They nearly always have a joey in their pouch, and
Okay.
then they keep one kind of incubated until that one moves out. And
Really?
then they'll start growing this next one. Yeah,
Wow.
that's my understanding. I'm not in any way.
Well, we're going to
expert.
hold you to that.
So
You heard
that-
it here first from Peter in Australia. Okay, kangaroos incubate while they have one growing, and then that one leaves and one pops back up. That one leaves, pops back up. It's a non-ending cycle, like jackrabbits in the desert.
And they are huge when they are in the pouch. Like they'll stay in their pouch until their legs and their arms don't fit.
Wow.
I did not know that.
You can have a look at it, and some kangaroos are massive, and a
Yeah.
lot of them are very small. So the average one that you'll see on the side of the road nowadays, what we call wallabies, they're a smaller thing.
Like
They
3 feet
might
tall?
be in your lingo, foot and a half high.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
super
Um,
small.
Or you can
Yeah.
get red kangaroos are probably standing up 9-10 feet high.
Wow.
They'll kick your ass.
Wow.
Oh shit, yeah, they're the ones that you see. They look like they've been doing steroids. I don't know if you've seen it where they
Yes.
cross their arms. They got pecs bigger than Arnie
Wow.
Schwarzenegger, and
I had to
they're
look them
nuts.
up on YouTube. I listened to a podcast where they were talking about these kangaroos. A guy had taken a trip to the outback, and he said, "You can't even imagine. You have to see it with your own eyes." So I looked it up on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I know it doesn't do it, give you the perspective, but
Uh-huh.
man, they're ripped.
That's crazy.
They
They
look
are,
like they've
yeah.
been lifting weights for 10 years.
So,
Yeah, they look like
so
they've been doing steroids. They sit on
So-
their back tail and they just stand up, and it's all about just intimidation. That's
That's
how they
insane.
win their fights.
let's talk animals. Let's talk species and insects and stuff because over here
Koalas. I
we
got to know
hear-
about the koala bear.
Yeah. Well, we hear a lot of things, and I just want to we've heard this. Like I saw something on Facebook within the last month where it was spider season in Australia.
And they're as
So-
big as your
and it-
face.
Right, and because the caption was "No, it's not snow. It's spider season in Australia," and it looked like blankets of snow, but it was webs. But because AI is what it is now, is that legit or is that made up?
That's legit, but I don't know if it's Australian. I've seen that one, and I
Okay.
don't know if it's Australian. I thought that might have been in some cotton fields or something. I can't
Okay.
remember. I have seen that same thing, and I've seen it where they set it alight and all the webs burn up. And yeah, I don't think there is a spider season. It's pretty
Okay.
much always spider season. There's
Okay,
always
let me
spiders
ask you
around.
this.
Uh-huh.
There's another famous meme that has gone around Facebook forever, Instagram as well, where there's this gigantic, I think it's a huntsman spider, like the mother, and then there's just a million babies around her. It's underneath a bed. I think everybody's seen this picture. Is that legit?
Yes, it is.
That's,
Yes, it is.
I would burn that house down.
So let me tell you about my first experience with
Please.
a huntsman spider.
Yeah,
Because I came from England, and we call I don't know what you guys call them, daddy long legs. The
Yes,
really
daddy
tiny
long-
ones
daddy
with
long
the-
legs,
Yep.
Yep.
So that was pretty much my experience with spiders was daddy long legs. And I came over here and I've heard about these huntsman spiders, and they jump.
Oh,
Really?
my God.
So
How-
the first time I've got two to tell you about. The first time I ever saw
Okay.
one, we didn't know how far they jump. So
Uh-oh.
I didn't know if they jump across the entire room or
Right.
an inch.
I got to
So
know how far.
There's me and my dad. There's me and my dad with a 14-foot fishing pole, just kind of prodding this thing, as brave
Right.
blokes. And yeah, they run everywhere. They do bite, but then they're not venomous.
Okay.
But they do hurt. So this one
Yeah.
time I was getting out of the shower, and I put on my towel, and I felt something on the back of
Oh, my God.
like just above the towel. And I turned around and I had a huntsman on me, and no shit, it was the size of my palm.
Oh, my God.
Lift your palm.
Peter.
Lift your palm up. Lift your palm up so people
Show
can see
people
the
how
watch it.
big
Lift
that
your
is.
palm up. Okay. Okay.
So
And-
it was
and
it
it
was,
was-
it would have been maybe 2.5 inches across.
2.5
I would-
inches
and
spider. A
I
huntsman
would
spider.
pass out.
And it bit you?
Well, this thing, I felt every leg, and it walked.
Oh.
It didn't run. It
Oh.
walked into the middle of my shoulder blades. It stopped. It turned around, and it
sweating.
slowly walked down.
Oh my
And I
God.
tell you what, when it reached the towel
Mm-hmm.
towel went flying, and
Oh.
I was running around like an epileptic seal.
How old were you at this time? 12, 13?
Probably 14 at that time.
Okay.
I was,
So,
I was
huh,
almost ready to run to swim back to England.
Okay, so huntsman spiders are real and they're 2.5 inches in diameter.
Yeah, they can get bigger. So I was at a friend's barbecue, and we there was a large spider that went across the table, and he put an empty ice cream container on top of it,
Okay.
and all you could see was this ice cream container lifting off the ground
God.
as this spider jumped.
I
You
don't
would
like
hear-
spiders, Peter.
No, I'm not a fan at all. At all.
And especially
The
when
only
they're
good
big
thing about
enough to
being a
have a
huntsman-
conversation with you.
Yeah, and if they've got to get up and brush their hair in the morning and you can have eye contact, I'm just...
That's not right.
It's not my thing.
And they're just prevalent everywhere, as well as just certain parts of
They
Australia.
are.
He's
Everywhere.
got another.
Very, very, very...
It's everywhere.
And they're indoor.
Okay.
They're an indoor spider, so
Oh,
you often
God.
find them indoors. The one... But like I said, the good thing about them is they're not considered venomous.
Yay.
The funnel web and the redback, they're probably your two that you worry about.
Don't
the
forget
funnel
your
web we
second
don't-
huntsman story. I want to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You had two
no,
huntsman
that-
stories.
That was both of them. So one of us was prodding it with the fishing.
Oh, I got,
yeah,
I
yeah,
got,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you always check your shoes out and that sort of thing before you put them on.
So Chris is
dude,
familiar with that because there's scorpions in Arizona.
Scorpions, right. But
So we
but if
did
I-
the same
we do
thing
get
out there.
scorpions over
Yeah.
here as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they're
scorpions
bigger, right?
tend to
They're
be a
like
bit
6
smaller.
inches. They're like a foot long. Your scorpions, because everything seems to
The
mastize in
only
Australia.
one I've seen, here was probably about an inch long.
Okay.
And it was in a lounge room. I was just laying down watching TV with my foot on the ground. I was like
Yeah.
lying on the couch, foot on the ground, and
Sure.
my girlfriend at the time, she just so casually, "Oh, Peter, there's a scorpion next to your foot." I'm like, "What?" And then I had a look, and I nearly shit myself because I'd never seen one before.
Yeah, don't ever be that calm again when you tell me that, woman.
Right. Peter, honey, darling, there's a scorpion down by your foot. Just wanted you to know. Thank you, love.
But yeah, the redback spiders are a venomous spider.
And they're like they're in
very-
the populated areas where you live.
They are very much so.
Oh, no.
They kind of live in. Their webs are just this messy kind of,
Gooey.
and they're often in corners and areas that you just kind of know where they're going to be.
Now, how big are they?
So, a large male would be less than a centimeter.
Okay.
Oh.
But still, if it has a red back, you want
So-
to kill it.
Yeah, we tend to leave them because they kill other pests.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing, it's a bit of a delicate thing. Like huntsmen's, I hate them with a passion, but they kill a lot of the flies and the mozzies and stuff like that. So they all kind of have a role to play. So I try and live and let live, but there's definitely
Yeah.
times when you're like, yeah.
So-
Snakes are another big issue.
Okay.
I think we've got something like 9 of the top 10 most
Oh.
venomous snakes over here.
Okay, so we have 2.5 to 3 inch spiders that aren't venomous but that will bite you. Then you have the redback spider, which will kill you. Then you have 9 out of the 10 most venomous snakes in the world in Australia.
Yeah, pretty much anything over here wants to kill you.
Okay. Okay. And Mike, you really want to go to Australia?
I'm reevaluating.
Yeah.
Do
So
they
if we-
fumigate the
so-
hotels?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if we go to the beach here,
Okay.
we actually have netted off areas because you can choose what kills you if you go for a swim in the ocean. There's
Oh.
crocodiles,
Okay.
there's sharks, and there's jellyfish.
Don't you guys have the deadliest jellyfish?
Yeah, the box jellyfish.
Yes, I watch a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
nature documentaries.
Yeah.
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 So as paramedics, we carry the anti-venom for box jellyfish.
Okay.
It is an extremely painful, very, very deadly. And what happens with them, and that's the one that a lot of people hear about vinegar is used as
Yes.
the
Yes.
antidote.
Hmm.
So what vinegar does that most people don't realize, vinegar doesn't stop the pain or doesn't stop the venom. It's not an antidote. What
Right.
it does is it neutralizes the tentacles that are still on you from
Yes.
injecting more into
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
it
My
stops
son.
you
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
more envenomated.
Yeah. When my son I think was 7 or 8 years old, we went to Mexico with a whole group of neighbors, and he and I were just kind of on the beach in the waves. The waves were coming up, to my shins type thing. He got a little deeper into the water, and I was following him, and then it felt like electric, but I was equating it to just the sea salt hitting
I
my
stepped
shins,
on
right?
one myself, man.
Right. Okay. So then my son, I'm looking at him, and he just has this look on his face, and then just starts screaming like, "Holy shit!" Like you think that Jaws is underneath him, taking half his body, right? And I reached down and grabbed him, lift him up by underneath his armpits, and just jellyfish had wrapped around the core of his like from his chest down, and he was just blood curdling, screaming. And I obviously pulled him out, and then the Mexican police came down, and like you said, vinegar. So they got Windex and shit because they don't have vinegar packets, so they're pouring Windex because it's an American resort. So obviously they're like flies on, so they're pouring all the time. He's screaming. I had
That's
one on my.
crazy.
It was to the point that it took him years to go back in the ocean. It took him probably 6 or 7 hours
I
just
can't
to
believe
recover
he
from
ever
the
did.
trauma of that. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
I just
I'm
stepped
not a-
on one, and I'm not crazy
Right.
about going back.
No,
in
and
the
I'm
fish.
saying I'm not a big fan of the ocean either. Like I'll sit on the beach and watch it. Nikki's got me to go on cruises now where we're floating on top of it. But I'm not gonna go surfing.
See, now the
and-
difference is,
Yeah.
poor Jake, he had it way worse
Mm-hmm.
than I did, but I still ended up with 2 holes in the bottom of my foot for years.
Wow.
Like they were just there. It took forever for those things to go away. But in
I always
Peter's
knew you were
case,
holy.
we step on a box jellyfish, and you and
Yeah.
I aren't if that happened to
We're
Jake
dead.
in Australia, he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
The trouble with the box jellyfish is their tentacles they can be sort of 10. I think they're longer than 10 feet. I think they can be 15,
Holy
20 feet
shit.
long. And
yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, there's been quite a few deaths from those. They just cause so much cardiorespiratory issues and pain that
Wow.
and kids die from that as well. So
That's terrible.
and then the other jellyfish that causes issues is one called irukandji.
Hmm.
Irukandji is about the size of your thumbnail, so it's really small.
Wow.
And you won't actually feel it sting you, but about half an hour later, you develop what we call Irukandji syndrome, and it's a pain like apparent. I've never had it. I have a colleague who has had it, and says it's a pain like you've never felt. It's a back pain that you can have as much fentanyl, morphine, whatever you want. You can have as much of that as you want. It won't touch the sides. It needs
Wow.
magnesium.
So
And
it
magnesium
attacks the
is
spine.
the antidote for that.
Wow.
So these
Yeah,
little
it-
tiny jellyfish are just floating along next to you, and they just latch on, sting you,
Yeah.
and that you're out there swimming, having a
Yeah.
good time, and this thing the size of your thumbnail just jacks you up.
And the thing
That's-
is, you got to
that's
remember,
crazy.
jellyfish don't look for you.
You run into
kind of
them.
Have to
Yeah.
it's the tide that takes them into you. So we have conditions where they won't let you in the water, and in these what we call the stinger nets, and up here
Stinging nuts.
from November to May.
You're
meant to
selling us on
wear-
Australia, man.
Oh shit, yeah. We
Come
wear-
for a swim.
You are meant to wear full body suits when you go in the water during stinger season, because if they can't contact your skin, they don't sting you.
Okay, so my question is, why doesn't the Department of Tourism for Australia have all this listed as reasons? Come to Australia if you can do like Fear Factor. Really, should just be Australia. Remember the
Yes.
show Fear Factor? It's Australia, the
If you can
Australian version of
survive
Fear
2 weeks
Factor.
in Australia, we'll give you 2 weeks for free.
Right? That's just it's insane. It's insanity. So we've kind of picked.
I guess we grow up with it, so
Well,
it's
sure.
such a normal part of life, and most of the time when people are taken by crocodiles or when you're in their territory.
Yeah.
Crocodiles generally they're stalkers. So that you've generally done something probably not so smart to get
Right.
taken by a crocodile.
I can see
We
that.
get big crocs, like 5 meters long. I've seen many myself. I'm an avid fisherman, love fishing, and you see crocodiles all the time.
Okay.
You just stay away from, you can see where they're going to be. You don't fish on the bank, and
Mm.
you'll go past on the boat, and people will be waist deep throwing a cast net, and you're like, you are just mad.
Now, so a boat, you're talking, is it a motorized boat or you're just like in a rowboat?
No, a motorized boat. I got
Okay.
what we call a tinny.
Okay.
Yeah, so 100 horsepower on the back.
Okay. Kind of like what Gilligan's Island had, SS Minnow, something like that. I'm just for relation of size because I don't, I like to when people were talking with they
No,
dropped
10
something,
feet's pretty small.
I like to
Yeah,
get
mine's about a
yeah.
15 foot. Mine's about
Okay,
a
that-
15 foot tinny.
Gilligan's
what I was
Island boat would have been like a 30, 40-foot boat.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to get a bearing of the size of it so people can understand because when people tell us their stories and stuff, I like to paint a little bit more detailed picture so they get a
Well, let me put this into perspective for you.
okay.
Nobody could imagine living in the desert if they didn't have air conditioning at this point
This is
in
true.
history, right?
This
You
is-
live
this is
in a
true.
very inhospitable climate for humanity.
I
Like
do.
you would die.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So last year we call them cyclones and they actually go the different way to the hurricanes. So not just the toilets. So they spin the different way. We had
Really?
a cyclone last year that came relatively close to ours.
Okay, let me
And
ask you this real
afterwards-
quick because now I got to know.
Yeah.
I'm confused already. What's the difference between a cyclone and a typhoon?
Typhoon is the Asian version.
Oh.
It's the same thing,
So,
only
no.
the Asian version.
Cyclone, hurricanes, and typhoons, I believe,
Okay.
are exactly the same thing. It's
Okay.
just where they are.
That
it's
was
just
my
where-
understanding as well. Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
so the Asian one you have sushi in it. The Australian one you have spiders in it. And then what was the
Yeah.
third one?
Yeah, you got Sharknado.
Hurricane.
and-
Okay, Sharknado.
Sharknado.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, now we
that
understand.
was
Okay.
great.
We don't get very many tornadoes over here.
Yeah, I don't either. I
So
don't either.
I do.
last year we had this cyclone go over, and the heat following it was
Really?
up there with the worst. We deal in centigrade. I don't know what this is in Fahrenheit, but it was about 45 with a feels like a 58.
It's
That would be probably 120 to 130 if
yeah.
I'm guessing right.
See,
Can you look
in
that
Arizona,
up, Chris?
in July, August come around, we can be 120. Like I lived through the summer where it was 128 degrees with the 1970 Camaro with no air conditioning because I just rolled down the windows and went to work. So
Yeah.
we're not, and I'm not allowed to talk about the heat because my wife believes you put voices on something that all of a sudden it becomes true. So you can just Google Arizona summers and you'll see what we deal with from a heat standpoint. But so I can feel the 120-degree thing because been there, done that.
Oh, it's the same as you.
So,
it's
it was a
113
feels like of
degrees.
136.
Oh,
It feels like of
my.
136.
Now,
And the
have you
humidity
ever?
is what kills you up here?
Right. See, and we have monsoon season. So when we have the monsoons, that's where humidity goes through the roof. Like, see, Arizona's a dry heat, whereas the Midwest, like I was born in Illinois, Mike lives in Illinois. So it could be 90 degrees in Illinois with 90% humidity, where it could be 120 degrees in Arizona with 10% humidity.
Correct.
I would take what I
Absolutely.
have opposed to what he has just
Correct.
because of,
I
and most
agree.
people
You,
would.
you can get in the shade and cool down, whereas when it's so humid, it's just disgusting.
You
Right,
can't breathe.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Florida, the armpit of America, right? Yeah, that type of thing. So we've been picking your brain all about Australian stuff. Is there anything you want to pick our brains about, being that we're, these Americans?
Have
that,
you been to America?
Yeah.
No, me and the missus were actually talking about next year maybe coming over for 2 weeks.
And where would
nice.
you like to go?
we-
What's your
we're-
ideal spot?
I'd like to do something in Florida. I'd love to go to Cape Canaveral,
Cool.
Vegas, and
Nice.
And probably LA. Just
All-
do a few days
all
in
good
each kind of
spots.
thing.
Okay. So if you
Yeah,
if you
I'd
do
love,
that,
I'd love to go to Everglades, and I want to do some
Yeah,
giant
if-
tarpon fishing.
Cool.
if you do this and you plan on coming to Vegas, give me a heads up. And if schedules align, my wife and I will pop down and hang out for a day or two in the strip. And
That
you
would be
can-
awesome.
That'd be awesome.
You can lollygag.
Yeah,
You can
did look-
lollygag with two Americans.
I might be
We
able
did
to
want
make that trip.
We did want to go to the
That'd be cool.
NRL launch because my team's over there in February. We did want to go and play that, go and watch that. But
Okay.
my wife's a personal trainer, and
Ah.
taking holidays early in the year is probably
Is
not the best
detrimental.
thing because
Because that's when everybody
that's
signs
when
up.
most of our people are doing their New Year's
Right.
resolutions, and
Right.
if you
And then by
get them
March
off
they're
the
done.
treadmill, they ain't coming back.
Right. Because then by March they're done. They realize, oh, this is too hard for me. I don't want to.
So I guess going back
Yep.
to Chris's question, since you've never been here,
Yeah.
yeah, pick
What
our
questions
brains.
do you have? Yeah. Pick the Americans' brains.
Yeah, nothing's. You know what? Probably the first 10 minutes of most of our news bulletins are
Yeah.
American based.
Really?
Full of them. You guys have such a huge influence on Australian culture,
That's
good
crazy.
and bad.
Okay.
Good and bad.
I did not know that.
You know,
I didn't know that either.
yeah.
What's a
even-
good thing
you
that
know,
what's a
the-
good thing that their culture's done to Australia? It's positives.
Oh, look,
What are
I
the
love the
positives?
movie culture and
Okay.
that sort of thing. I love the podcasting culture.
Yeah,
I've got
obviously.
really into podcasting.
How about our
Yeah,
music? What kind of music are you into from America?
I'm really easy. So my favorite band of all times is Guns N' Roses.
Oh,
Cool.
right on.
I'm going to the Metallica concert in November when they come over.
One of my favorites.
So I'm into everything.
Yeah.
I appreciate music, whether it's
So
pop,
real
rock,
quick,
I
Peter.
don't really give a shit.
Right.
Real quick, a blast from the past. Chris and I got to see the Load Reload tour in 1998 together.
Mm-hmm.
That was his first Metallica concert. I got to be there with him, and it was awesome. Him and his wife both.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I remember when I was 15, Guns N' Roses and Metallica did a joint concert over
Yep.
here.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
That was a world
and
tour.
at Eastern Creek, at a place called Eastern Creek Raceway, and I think there was 150,000 people that went, and I was about $40 short of going, and my mum wouldn't let me go.
Oh no!
I was gutted. I had
And
to
he-
wait until I think 2000 and I think it was like 2012 to see Guns N' Roses live for the first time.
The Chinese
that's a lot-
Democracy
and-
tour.
Yeah, that's when I took Jake. That's when I took Jake.
Yep,
'cause
you
Jake
guys
took-
saw the same tour.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Chris saw
Yeah.
it too.
And like a 2,500 seat venue.
So let me tell
they
you
were
a
on
quick
time.
story.
yeah.
Crazy how small the world is, Peter. The guy who was playing guitar when you saw them grew up 18 miles from me in a smaller town, really in the middle of a cornfield.
Yeah, that's
So
nuts.
that guy standing on
It
that
is- it
stage
is a
playing for
very small
you
world.
started there. That's just so. Those kind of things just make life crazy.
So I'll,
you know?
I'll give you another example. So I've got a podcast as well, and I had an English guy come on it. He was a paramedic for 50 years, and
Wow.
I rang him the day before, and he's one of those blokes that makes you look at your life going, "Oh, I've achieved nothing." You know, he is just an absolute unbelievable.
I call it the life
So he-
resume.
I love it.
Yeah. So he have you heard of the Glastonbury Festival, the music
Yes.
festival?
Yes.
100%.
Yep.
Yep.
So he started and runs the charity that does all the medical provisions for that.
Nice.
Oh wow.
So they have over 5,000 people and like intensivists. They have X-ray machines, you name it.
Wow.
And they all donate their time for free, and then the money that would go to them goes to this charity, and then they do medical stuff around the world.
Oh,
But
that's
anyway,
cool,
I rang
man.
him, and he I knew he was English, but I was like, and we were on the phone via Facebook, and I said, so whereabouts are you from? And he said, a little town in the southwest of England called Burnham-on-Sea. I said, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh, that's where I was brought up. And it is a town of less than 5,000 people.
Wow.
Wow.
That's half the size of the
And,
town
yeah.
I'm in.
Dude, my hometown just hit
nuts, and he'd
804
been there.
people like 2 years ago.
So when he's
Okay.
giving
That's
giving
crazy.
all these stories, it's like holy shit, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
That's-
really cool. Yeah, he went to Afghanistan and taught people how to demine, like first aid for people that do demining and things like that. It was just an extraordinary man.
Like demining from like in the mine, like mining for things, or demining from picking up landmines.
Yeah, landmines.
Now,
Yeah,
how
we had-
crazy is
He was
that?
saying
We
there's
just had a guy
yeah,
on
yeah, that's where I was going
on
with that.
Friday. That's what he
Yeah.
did when he was in the military.
Yeah, in the army, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing
So-
that he explained to us, they have these vehicles that are 30 feet off the ground, and they have the it's like an angle of iron, whatever the vehicle's
It's
made
like
out of. So-
V-shaped at the
yeah,
bottom.
V-shaped the bottom of it. So if they drive over an IED and it goes off, it explodes that way. As
It
opposed to going
deflects the
straight up.
IED away from
Yeah.
the vehicle.
Yeah.
So the ones that he was teaching, they were Afghanis that were so he was saying there's 100 million mines in Afghanistan, and what they used to do, especially the
Wow.
Russians, is they would throw these little ones, these coloured balls that had. Do you know what a sycamore seed is? They've
Yeah.
got they're
Yeah.
kind of like little wings that come
Yeah.
out, so they
Oh, yeah.
spin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was. He said they were coloured and they were designed for children to pick them up, and then they would explode. And they were designed to maim children, not to kill them. So designed to blow their hands off.
That's terrible.
So and they would throw 5,000 out of a chopper, and they would go anywhere. And then these kids would pick them up. So now there's 100 million of these things laying around.
Wow.
So not buried. They could just be sitting in a tree, or whatever. So they go around picking these things up. They're
And-
not digging ones up. They're actually picking these ones off the surface. And
And where are these
he was
at?
saying that all around
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, especially especially in the mountain areas. And he was saying,
look
yeah,
at the
there's
m-
apparently 100 million of them, and 1 in 7 people in Afghanistan are missing a limb.
You got to
So-
remember, the Russians were there for 10 solid years, and then we've been there ever since.
But what
This has
kind of
been
mi-
ongoing.
What kind of mind does it take to willingly construct something that you know is going to be used for that, and then you order somebody to
Completely
fly
evil.
ahead and just throw these things out the side of the helicopter, knowing, like full well knowing, you're going to cut off children's arms and hands and just to
And
be
do
a
damage,
dick.
not-
Like
and
what the
thing
hell?
Is, it's not like there's an
Terrible.
off switch where you can say, okay, we're no longer at war and no
Well,
longer doing this.
right.
They're around forever.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and even then, back then, they're doing it for the children. Mike and I are fascinated with serial killers, right? And the biggest thing about serial killers, for the most part, they have a code, right? No women, no children, right? There's the bad ones that do, but you draw a line with the child does nothing. Now, yes, the child can grow up to be Genghis Khan, right? Or Dahmer, or Donald Trump, right? You can grow up to be somebody who's just malicious, right? And has just a vile intention in the world, but it's a child, man. It's
Right.
I just
The way
can't
he
fathom.
explained it, which fits into that, is what better way is there to cause terror than
Sure.
potentially maimed children? So as a parent, your job is to protect your child, and that's the way to sort of to keep them in line.
I would
it's
I would say you have to understand that kind of evil exists in order to combat it, right? You
Yeah.
can't just bury your head in the sand and say people aren't doing that. It doesn't exist.
Right.
You have to combat that kind of stuff head on, and that's why I say I'm on team people,
Yeah,
right?
look,
More people
Yep.
need to be like
doing the
us.
job that
Yep.
I did. Doing the job that I did I just remember even within the first week realizing how privileged my upbringing was.
Oh,
I say
Because
that
it's
a
not
lot.
until you see how the other side live.
Yeah.
Obviously we deal with plain abject poverty or drugs or whatever,
Mhm.
and you don't realize how well you are off until you see that sort of stuff.
Correct.
I would agree with that.
They say
would
if
agree
you
with
make over $30,000 a year, you're in the top 1% of the world. People forget that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of
Yep.
Americans don't understand that because they always want more and more and more, right?
Right.
We're a consumer-driven nation.
Yep.
So that was the one thing that when you said about asking you questions, the one thing I've never really understood about you guys is
Okay.
your healthcare is just crazy. I
It is
believe
crazy.
it's the leading cause of bankruptcy over there, and that is
It wasn't.
just
It wasn't.
crazy.
It wasn't bad. Like when my wife and I have been. My wife and I have been together for 30 years. So we had our first child for like $10, because back then, Blue Cross Blue Shield, it wasn't monopoly. It wasn't a monopoly. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the pharmaceutical companies. like you probably heard how insanely expensive diabetes medication is, but you can get Viagra for fucking $5. Like, really? There's a disconnect here, boys and girls. Okay, let's I there's more and more stuff coming out now, and again, I don't know how much of it's tied to AI and all that nonsense because it's hard to discriminate what's fact and fiction nowadays. But there's been stuff being dropped that I've seen as of late that there's new medicines they're discovering in other parts of the world that there's one that I saw that I want to say, I'm not going to quote, I'm not going to guess the country, but somebody developed something to where it can help prevent 14 different varieties of cancer, right? Or that's true, I don't know. But if you look at cancer in a whole, especially in the United States, it's a multi-million-dollar a year industry, and it's one of the most, given to from a charitable standpoint of any other things. How long does it take to find a cure, man? Like, how many trillions of dollars do you have to funnel into something?
There's no money in the cure.
But right, so what are we giving the money for? That's the insane thing. So I don't get the healthcare either, but it's over the years it's completely evolved, and it's turned into more, I think, more of a money making monopoly than anything else. Because like, my wife's a school teacher, going on her 20th year. She pays our medical insurance, so she's the sugar mama medical, right? And it keeps going up every year. So they'll get like this 5% cost of living raise, but then the insurance will go up 12%.
Yep.
So okay, well, yay, that's fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm 6% in the hole again.
Right. So our daughter, her husband jacked his ankle up, so they went to an urgent care I don't know, 2 weeks ago or so, and it cost her $5 with the insurance she has, which is through the state because of the income that they make. Which is insane.
See, we have universal healthcare over here.
Right. And see, where I was going with that is then us, the other taxpayers, we pick all that up. So then, it's bullshit. So universal health care is like it's like socialism type thing. I don't want.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's called Medicare.
Okay.
So all our hospitals and GPs. So GPs are starting more and more. In fact, it's getting harder to find one that doesn't have an out of pocket because
GP meaning
kind of raised general practitioner.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys call them primary practitioners.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you had a heart attack, if you broke your leg, you go to hospital. So earlier this year, my wife, we discovered she had a football-sized growth on her uterus.
My wife had the same thing. Like shit, you not like 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
Like on her. Yeah.
And she had an MRI done on Boxing Day.
Okay.
And then 6 weeks later, it doubled in size, and she had to get a full surgery and full laparoscopic, so a full zip down the stomach and get it all out, hysterectomy, the lot. Didn't cost us a cent.
Right. Okay.
And anything like that, it just general healthcare doesn't cost you anything. Now
that's cool.
If it's an elective surgery, if you have arthritic knees and you need a knee replacement, then you might be waiting 2 years.
Okay.
If you have private health insurance, which we do have, and that's a choice to pay extra, you can go to a private hospital. You'll get in, but there's cost to that. So you can pay for getting. It's not better healthcare. It's generally quicker healthcare through a different system. So by paying for it, you're not stopping somebody else getting it through the public system.
Gotcha.
You're just kind of going through a privately funded one. So. But if you're sick, like I remember seeing some comparisons of drug costs for American versus what we pay.
This will be interesting.
I was blown away. So
really,
I would love to find the chart. But things that you guys were paying $1,000 for, we were paying $6.
$6?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where our system's
broke. The PBS, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, and that's where the government subsidizes a vast amount of drugs. Vast amount. The maximum you'll pay for something on the PBS, I believe, is $32.
Wow. Now let's talk about money.
On. Keep this in mind. There's only 2 countries in the civilized world that allows drug advertising: the United States and Peter,
New Zealand.
Thank you.
Really? So my question is this about money. $32 in Australia equates to $32. How many dollars in America?
I think.
Do you have any idea?
$32. I think it's set. I think $1 Australian is buying about 70 US
Okay.
cents.
Okay. Cents? 7 cents?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's so 70. So
Okay.
So if let's say it's $30 here, that would be let's say 40. Yeah, about 40.
Okay.
bucks.
Okay. Okay. I just perspective. That's all. That's
No,
interesting.
sorry, it'd be about $20. $20 US the other way.
Okay.
around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like that. I like that. We need to. Can we figure out how to make that happen here in America?
Well, that's why your drug costs are so high, because every 10 seconds there's an ad on television saying, Chris,
Yeah.
you need this. Chris, you need this.
Yeah.
Mike, you need
Now-
this.
Well,
Now
I
this
don't
is
know how correct it is, but I heard that the pharmaceutical industry over there spends $2 billion a
Oh,
year
yeah.
in advertising.
easy.
That's probably
Easy.
That's probably
Easy.
conservative.
And half of it's for erectile dysfunction or testosterone, because that's all they seem to focus on is just testosterone
not wrong.
and erections. It's like, okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about this, let's talk about that. Right? It's ridiculous. So again, with my
Whereas
ignorance part,
if we'll find if a new drug comes on the market that's important and
right?
let's say Ozempic or although
Right.
that type of drug, not Ozempic itself.
Well,
but
that's going to come
those
back to
sort of
bite
things
everybody in
came-
the ass.
Agreed.
Very, very much that potential, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But let's say there's a new weight control drug comes out on, the government will actually do some advertising
Research.
and say, speak
Okay.
to your doctor. There's no
Oh.
brands.
Yeah.
They'll just say, speak to your doctor, and then
Yeah.
your doctor can decide. But at the same time, so you can't do any of that. But there's gambling, especially sports gambling. Advertising has gone through the roof in the last.
Well,
few
here too,
years.
man. Here too. Especially
Yeah.
once the NFL opened up gambling, and partnered with, and so did the NBA. And then it's
Yeah.
nonstop. It's insane.
How about
And then-
casinos? Do you guys,
good question.
are you a casino culture?
Not really. There's nowhere that has. I think most major cities have one casino.
Okay,
Okay.
otherwise I
You
wasn't
might-
coming.
So,
Yeah, so
so
I mean, we've got a casino up here in Townsville. So Townsville's a regional city. We've got about 260,000 people here,
Oh, that's a
and
big
Okay.
city.
there's probably six. There's one casino, and it's probably got two roulette tables in it, 6 blackjack. Like,
I
it's
can't play
small.
craps.
There's no craps up here. There is in some of the other ones, in some
Okay.
of the bigger ones.
That's my game, man. I love playing
Nice.
craps.
Never played it.
Oh,
Never
it's
played it. Seen
fantastic.
it played, but never played it.
Fantastic. Do yourself a favor. Put it on your bucket list.
here's a political question. Like America, we have a president. What do you have in Australia? Are you
Great question.
president, democracy?
So we're the Westminster system, which is the same as the United Kingdom. So we have a prime minister.
Parliamentary.
So the way
Oh.
it works over here is the country is divided into seats, and I think you need. We've only just had the election. I'm trying to think of the number. I think it was 75. You need 75 seats in your party, and then
Okay.
of those people that in that party, they vote for the leader, and the leader becomes the prime minister.
Okay.
So there's no one person that you're not voting for the leader, although they
Right.
kind of try and make it that way.
Okay.
You're voting for your local member, and then those local members work out who's going to lead them, and they become the leader. So
Oh.
in the middle of, let's say, I don't know, so Anthony Albanese is our prime minister. He just got re-elected. If in 2 years' time, 3 years, I think, is our cycle for federal. If
Okay.
in 2 years' time, the Labor Party, who are our current government party, if they decide that Anthony Albanese stands no chance in hell of being re-elected for the next
Okay.
one, that somebody can challenge him for the leadership, and if he gets and if he or she gets more votes, then they become prime minister and he gets the
Okay.
boot. He just goes
So-
back to the backbenches.
So is there a term limit like in America? It's 2 terms and that's it. You can't run for a third, even though Donald thinks he's going to run for another term. But here it's 2 terms. That's it for president. Congress and Senate, they can be in office for 70 years and not even show up to vote because they're so old and decrepit, but they're still getting voted in, which is ridiculous. So do you have term limits in Australia?
No, we don't. No,
Okay.
and I think that's part of the problem. Like
Yeah.
there's people been in politics for 30, 40 years, but we have 3 different levels of government. We have local councils, we have
Okay.
state governments, and federal governments.
Okay.
And they all run off the same type of system. So so for our federal system, we have what we call the House of Representatives,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
we have that.
where generally and then their sort of check is what they call the upper house or the Senate. So basically things have to go through the
You can
House of
see how we
Representatives.
stole our system of government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I'm
is
getting
all.
you.
I think the
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
the biggest problem is that it has become we are becoming more and more Americanized, and we are becoming more and more polarized.
Okay.
Very much leading on from American sort of culture.
Gotcha.
So that
So
you know,
that would be
you
the
had a
bad side
few-
of it.
Yeah, I think so. It's not something I'm a fan of. So our head of state, a lot of people don't know, and I can't imagine too many Americans would know. Our head of state is the King,
Oh, okay.
King Charles.
King Charles.
So we are a
from
part of the
from over
Commonwealth.
from over in England. That's
So
King
you're
Charles.
still an
Yes.
English Commonwealth?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we are called. Our actual name is the Commonwealth of Australia.
Okay.
So there was a what's the word?
A coup?
There was a vote. Oh, shit, there's a word for a referendum. There was a referendum
Oh.
a few, probably about 15 years ago, to
Okay.
change to leave the monarchy and become its own republic,
Yeah.
and it got defeated. And it was simply and it was defeated simply because there was no real advantage
I
for
was
the
gonna- I was just
cost
gonna
that
ask
it would
that.
have had. No one
Okay.
could sell it. I
Yeah.
voted no because no one sold me on the advantage.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
How's my life going to get
why-
better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're there purely in.
They're your big-
there in a
they're your-
ceremonial facet.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. They're your big brother. They kind of watch over you.
Yeah, England.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
again, we're the most epic sporting rivals. But yeah,
Right.
the one thing I do love about Australia compared to other countries is that sporting rivals over here are fun. There's never any animosity. Like you might have a jab at somebody, but it's always done
Yeah.
in jest.
Yeah.
You very rarely get fights
I like
at
that
sporting
too.
events.
Yeah.
It is starting to sneak in with clubs that are a lot more ethnically based.
Mm.
So that is
Sure.
and that used to be a massive issue in soccer. So
Okay.
in soccer back in the day before it became what's now called the A League,
Yeah.
they had clubs based on ethnicities.
Mm.
So they had Melbourne, Croatia.
Okay.
And and so you were always going to have this massive fight. So
Yeah.
they cleaned that up a lot.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, so the most epic rivalry and the biggest game is probably what we call State of Origin, which is Queensland versus New South Wales, which is actually what those balls are behind.
Peter's got
And
balls.
that's like your
Two of them.
I would call that the equivalent of your All Stars.
Nice balloons, Mike.
I don't know how I did
Yeah, I was just
that.
going to say, what the hell? Just saw balloons going. It would be the equivalent of your All Stars, but it's All Stars with
Okay.
meaning.
Oh, okay.
So it's mate versus mate, state versus state, but
Okay.
it's fun and it's
Right
there's
on.
never any animosity, and we don't have to worry about coming out and getting shot.
Yeah. Well, and that's not indicative of everything in America because the ones of us that are adults like Mike and myself, it's a game.
Yes.
It is what it is. I mean, if the Giants win the Super Bowl, I'm not going to go outside and lift my neighbor's vehicle upside down, in celebration. That's just monumentally stupid. But you have that mindset still, unfortunately. But it's not something that's shared on a whole. You have Philadelphia, they're like that. Their fans are stupid like that.
Well,
think
there's
it's-
isolated incidents.
Right, right,
you know.
and but that's the thing. You take the isolated. You take one small core of fans that are just idiots, and then they ruin it for everybody else. It's like that's why we can't have nice things, right?
I
Because
think what
you
he's
just-
saying, though, and correct
yeah,
me if I'm wrong,
they
Peter,
don't.
but that kind of stuff just doesn't happen there, right?
Correct.
Even
Yeah, that's what I was.
isolate-
That's what
okay.
I. Yeah, but that's what I was saying. Like I was kind of debating with him a little bit that.
Well,
that
let me
that's-
also put this into
that's not all of
perspective
us.
for
Yeah.
people that's also going to be a debatable issue, but I
Sure.
don't think so because
Yeah.
we have to consider the population density, right?
True.
There's 350 million people in the same size as how many people do you guys have? 30?
27 million.
27
Yeah.
million. That was pretty
Yeah.
close.
That's yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
they're
our
basically the
biggest
size of
city-
Orange County.
Biggest
Yeah.
city is, I think, maybe 5 million for
Okay.
Melbourne and Sydney. They're about
Okay.
5 million each.
Okay. So another thing that we need to clear up for our listeners and viewers, because Australia is completely upside down from us, right? Like we could dig a hole and find you. Is Christmas in July?
We have Christmas in summer, and that is something I still am not used to after 30 years.
Okay, so that's legit.
That's
so
a
is
great
it
question. When
is it December in the summer
Yep,
or
December
is it
the
July?
25th.
But it's in the
December
summer.
25th.
Okay.
So they do Christmas in July, and that's just
Okay.
a marketing gimmick so
Okay.
that people can
Same as
wear
us.
winter, Christmas jumpers and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay.
So, but yeah, our Christmas is generally seafood and sitting around the pool and playing cricket or
Okay.
That's crazy.
or whatever.
What's
It
what?
is- It is not normal. It is
Okay.
to me. It's really odd because I came from England when I was young,
Sure.
and cold Christmas is
Yeah.
associated with the cold in
Thank
every
you.
literature and movie.
Us too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I grew up that way.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So, but it's like
It's-
120 degrees outside, and you're hanging out by the barbecue and playing cricket.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's and drinking beer and eating seafood. There's no, some places do turkey, but yeah, it's seafood is probably our number one Christmas food
Okay.
now.
Okay. And then all your seafood obviously is fresh because you're surrounded by ocean.
It's crazy. We export way more than we actually import
Really?
and eat more imported seafood because it's cheap. And believe it or not, it's cheaper to get prawns or a lot of seafood sent overseas, processed, and sent back than it is
Really?
to actually do it. Yeah, it's
So you-
just
huh.
so ridiculous. So barramundi is probably our number one most famous fish.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a staple. And I think it's something like 70% of all the barramundi eaten in Australia is imported.
Wow. I would have never
what's-
guessed that.
It's,
So what's
it-
one
it
thing?
is- it's just nuts.
What's one thing that Australians like you just gravitate towards from an American thing? Like certain countries like they just fall head over heels over red tag Levi's, right? And certain countries they just got to have the Jordans. Is there something like that Australians would just move earth and stone to get something that it's American?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is
Thank
a
you.
great question.
Nothing that
Nothing that comes to mind.
really springs to mind. There's
Okay.
a lot of, fashion. Yeah, fashion is very much influenced by all the different cultural, influences, be it music or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
I
funny, isn't it?
stumped
Because
Peter.
the world is so.
It's small.
It's come together so much
Yeah.
with the internet. Like,
Yeah.
there's just, and if we want something from America, we just jump on Amazon and buy it.
Right. Now, so that's interesting. I was going to bring up Amazon because Amazon's worldwide, right?
Yep.
So let's okay. So like, what's the normal cost of a brand new vehicle in Australia? Like here, if you want to buy a 4-door crew cab pickup truck, you're like 120 grand, brand spanking new. That doesn't have all the bells and whistles, right? So, say like, do you have American products as far as vehicles like Fords and Chevys over there?
The Chevys and Dodge Rams and that sort
Okay.
of thing have just started to come over here,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're around 200 grand.
Wow.
So that's about 150 in American.
Yeah, probably slightly
Pretty close.
more than
Okay.
that. They're,
So-
they're-
so-
yeah, they're pretty expensive.
So what's the main thing you guys manufacture vehicle wise over there? Is it the Subaru
Uh,
Outback?
No, we lost all our manufacturing. There is no cars manufactured in
Really?
Australia anymore. I
Wow.
think the Holden factory, we used to do Holdens and Fords. The
Yeah.
Holden factory closed, if I had to guess, I'd say maybe 6 years ago, 7 years
Wow.
ago.
Okay.
So you know how you guys have NASCAR?
Yeah.
We have supercars over here, and
Right.
the ultimate, and it was Ford versus Holden,
Okay.
and that was the big thing,
Yeah.
and it went for many years, and it was a real rivalry. A real rivalry. You kind of
Right
went for
on.
one or the other, and
Cool.
they since Holden and Ford now go overseas, they've now brought in like Nissan and other manufacturers, and it's lost its Australianism of it. You know, that real tribalism. So yeah, unfortunately, there is nothing that we
It's
make over
manufactured.
here anymore,
Wow.
which is
So
really
you
sad.
so with so I don't and correct me if I'm wrong, but Trump can't control the whatever you guys do from Australia to other countries, only between us and America, right? Like he wants to tariff you from American stuff, he can do that, but you're not getting tariffed like crazy for stuff that comes from Britain or other countries around you aside from America, right?
No, I think we've got free trade agreements with pretty
Okay.
much
All right.
everywhere.
All right, cool.
Australia is net positive for America, so you guys export more to us than you import.
Mm.
So, and one of our biggest imports to you guys is steel, and
Really?
it's going to hurt us with that 20% tariff. That's because it was going to be 10, and then he's to 20 or announced yesterday or day before.
Yeah.
So that could have some flow-on effects, but at the same time, we have such broad export partners that I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. The difference will be the flow-on effects from America's influence on the world. So,
Well,
so
hopefully-
when you
yeah,
guys when those tariffs were first arrived
Right.
and your stock market tanked, as followed suit, we just
Yeah.
straight down the.
Well, I think a lot of
so-
his thing is wishful thinking, and then he's who knows what the hell he's doing. He's a whack-a-mole. But I'm hopeful that it doesn't do because every time he's tried to do something in regards to that, we've shut it down.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you're not doing that. Yeah, you're not doing that. Yep, not doing that. Now I get the China thing because China has been sticking it to us for years. So let's stick it right back to them, right?
Right.
Because
I have no
turnabout's
problem
fair
with
play. Turnabout's fair play. If we get charged, if any people are charging us to export import, then I'm the same. Okay, if they're going to charge us 10%, let's charge them 10%. Let's
But don't do
mirror
it to Peter. Peter's been
Right,
the representative for Australia as far as the Chris and Mike show goes, and he's been an outstanding representative of Australia.
Yes,
So
nice job, Peter.
let's not mess with Peter. He seems like a friendly fellow.
Yes,
But
he
I
is.
guess the problem with tariffs is that if I am a manufacturer over here, I probably buy a huge proportion of my things from various countries, including
Right.
China. They're
Correct.
obviously the world's biggest exporter of pretty much everything.
Which I don't get
So,
that because how does that China being that is
but
that
then-
just because
It's because they're
Go ahead.
cheap.
Slave labor.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You can do a lot when you can
essentially
pay
it comes
somebody
down to
10
what
cents
the-
an
what-
hour.
And they have little
Exactly.
hands.
Exactly.
Little hands.
You know, and it's one of those things. Everybody gets on their high horse and says our iPhones or Samsung should be made in America, but you're probably going to be paying $5,000 for it.
Right. Well, Apple came out and
You know,
said they're
because-
going to invest $400 billion over the next 4 years so they can actually produce all of their products in America, which I think is cool. And we'll see what kind of cost that carries over to the consumer. But there's the reason why Detroit was because all the manufacturing cars that were made, right? I mean, that put the Industrial Revolution was America. That's what our foundation is. So now that everything's gone and being exported, and we're going to go build a factory in Mexico to build cars instead of in America, well, it hurts our economy, but it boosts that economy. And then you have all the tariff stuff going back and forth. So I think it's just a vicious cycle that you just need to find a happy medium.
But, okay,
and just,
so to play devil's advocate, do you think that would have
Yeah.
happened if Trump didn't do these tariffs?
no, I don't think so.
So
100%
is
no.
their method.
No.
Is so it's one of those things that it could have good things for America
Yeah.
and very bad things for the rest of the world.
Sure.
But it's going to take a generation or two to actually
Sure.
make up that difference.
Oh, agreed.
Well,
Agreed.
here's what I told Chris many episodes ago when this first started. In my opinion, everybody's looking at it in reverse. They're not concerned about what the results are to you and I, because what I was seeing was stock market manipulation right before everybody's eyes. The rich got richer right there. They pulled the market down, they
Yep.
bought it up, and they're starting to drive it back up. The rich are
Yeah.
getting richer, right? That's how
Yep.
they do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have stock market in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. We heavily influenced by America, but it's also the Hang Seng, like the Japanese, and we're part of the world economy.
Do you guys drill your own oil and stuff? Are you self-sufficient in that aspect?
We actually export. We export. We have some of the highest gas and oil prices in the world, and we
Really?
export the majority of it.
So see how is Mad Max possible, man? Because Mad Max was all about dystopian, world
Well, they
where
ran out of
everything
gas
was.
at that point.
But no, but they were. But all those vehicles, man, were driving. They
Yeah.
all had gas,
That's what they were on the hunt for, though. Remember?
so they were wasting all the fuel hunting for fuel.
Yes.
And
That
and
was
then you had the Thunderdome, and all hell broke loose.
Tina Turner just
Right?
unleashed hell. Yeah.
One man enters, two man leaves. That was 25 pounds of chain link fence she wore.
Yes.
We export more oil and natural gas than we
Okay.
actually
Okay.
use.
How do you
which is
export?
So stupid.
How do you export natural gas, man? Is it just through a pipe?
Pipelines and tankers.
Okay. So the pipeline goes under the ocean floor, pipeline to.
Yes.
Okay, Mike says
I'm
yes.
gonna. Yeah. Look,
Okay.
I don't know enough
Okay.
to. Yeah, I don't know.
That's how they do it.
And
There's underground
coal is a big one
pipelines.
as well. We do
Okay.
a lot of mining.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right, well, boys and girls, this is the Chris and Mike Show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. This is Peter Vinicum. Did I say that right?
Peter, we're gonna, as
It'll-
far as I'm concerned, we're gonna put you on our list of
Yeah.
people to have back because
Absolutely.
I'm fascinated with Australia, and you've been awesome, man. Thank you so much
And-
for your time and
And if you ever
humoring
want,
us with all our questions.
and if you want a couple Americans on your show, we'd be glad to be guests as well. We'll return. the
Million
favor,
percent.
so, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you mind
What's-
if I
what's-
give it a plug?
I'll give everything a plug you want, man. That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
this.
whatever you want to talk about, you lay it on us,
So,
man.
so yeah, my podcast is called Beyond the Call: Experiences of High Trauma Occupations. And I
Say that one
basically
more
have
time.
Long conversation. Beyond the Call: Experiences of High Trauma Occupations.
Okay.
And I talk to people in and around the high trauma space. So
Okay.
be it defence or first responders.
Right.
I've had a professional. I had an NRL referee. I've had I had an escort, a high class escort from America on there as well, because
Right on.
they all trauma. Trauma is a lot more than what we see and what we think.
Agreed.
And the effects it can have is huge.
Mhm.
I suffer from PTSD. I hate the word PTSD.
Yeah.
It's, to me, it should be PTSI. It's an injury, not a disorder.
Oh, nice. I
Um,
like that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Disorder has such a negative connotation
it does.
to it internally. I've
Mhm.
got a disorder. Whereas an
Mhm.
injury is a temporary, can be a temporary thing. So
Right.
I'm still in the process of getting through that, and I found it really therapeutic. It's long form, but it's and it's deep, dark, and can get graphic. So if
I
you're
like it.
easily
I'm gonna be tuning in, man.
offended, don't go there. But
Yeah.
it's really therapeutic.
So from a trauma standpoint, so you have somebody on, like I went through a fair amount of trauma in my childhood growing up. So from a vantage point, say I'd come on, we talk about my trauma and stuff. Are you somebody that certified to kind of work through the trauma with someone? Or are you just kind of sharing stories and how they adapt, recover, and survive through all of it?
So what I'm generally doing is trying to get stories that, and no, I'm not certified, although it is something I'm interested in
Okay.
in becoming.
Yeah.
I've spent time in mental facilities myself as a patient and
Okay.
got a lot out of that.
Okay.
I get people to come in and tell their stories, and I like to try and get them to I want my audience to be able to identify if they might be
Yeah.
feeling or thinking something similar, and it might
Oh,
be
nice.
enough for them to reach out and get some help.
I like
So
that.
That's
I
cool.
go
Yeah.
through the emotional stuff that people go through, and because the worst feeling about any sort of mental health trauma is that you feel alone.
Right.
Couldn't
Yep.
agree with you more.
Yep.
You're
And
the
if
only
you-
person going through this.
That's why we always wrap our show up with if you're feeling down, depressed, suicidal, somebody loves you, somebody's gonna miss you. Make the call. Go on Google, find somebody that can help you talk through the problem. If nobody else is there, you can reach out to Mike and I, because somebody will miss you. You don't create a hole in somebody's heart because you were struggling and didn't know how to deal. Because everybody, on some level, has dealt with trauma in a similar fashion, has felt the same way at some point in time in lives. Because nobody can say my life is perfect from day one, no matter who you are, what stage you are in life, what class level you are, low class, middle class, upper class. It doesn't matter. Everybody has to deal with the bullshit that everybody else has to deal with. It's just different for each person and how they carry it and how they process it. So we never let the bad days win. Somebody's going to miss you. Somebody loves you. Remember that, because that's kind of why we started this, because we're both recovering. I'm a recovering alcoholic. He's a recovering drug addict. We both had those dark periods of our life. Everybody does. But it's somebody like you, which is really cool. I didn't realize that's what your show is about, but that's fantastic, because you're helping people release that and get it out of their systems. That could be very cathartic. I know some of the stuff I've gone through getting it out. My benefit was writing and singing and performing. I was able to purge that darkness and turn it into something positive as far as that aspect of it. But a lot of people don't have that.
That's a
of people just sit there.
$1,000,000% what music did for me.
Right. And a lot of people don't have that outlet. So that's a cool thing that you do, man.
Well, the next time we have him on, that will be the whole show, man. We'll just talk
Yeah.
about this, how you've started and how you got going. And I'm super interested in that myself, and I'll be tuning into your show. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I mean, the two words that are probably the most dangerous are worthlessness and helplessness.
There you go.
If you feel worthless or helpless, if you feel those two things combined, your risk of suicide is so high that's a red flag. That's when you need to get some help. Because if
been
we
there,
don't
man.
have things where we're going to look forward, that's your risk is just through the roof.
Yeah.
And I've been to so many. I've been to hundreds in my career,
Oh, I
and
bet.
every one of them is one more than needs to happen.
Yeah, agreed. Amen to that, man. That's Peter. He's Chris. I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in to Chris and Mike Show. You can find this episode on YouTube when it drops, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Although we were recording this live simultaneously on YouTube, which is kind of cool. We will drop a whole bunch of information about Peter, so you can follow his podcast as well on our Facebook page. Give us a follow. Give us a like. We love you all. Thank you very much, Peter, for being here. We truly appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Peter.
And yeah, let's have you on again,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Have
Sounds great.
have a great Wednesday.
yes.